Here. Okay, at this time, we will entertain matters of interest to council members for items not on the agenda. Councilwoman Kretz.
I just wanted to say that my heart goes out to the D'Ambrosio family of Loomis, and the son, Ricky, is in the hospital with a severe vaping-related illness. And this type of injury has been becoming more and more prevalent in the United States. And in fact, I read today that 37% of 12-year-olds have actually tried vaping, and that was an old number from last year. I suspect that that number is increasing. And what I would like to see is our town staff please provide us more information about this public health epidemic. And I just wanted to talk, and did you want to?
Yeah, I agree. I know that, especially within the high school, several teachers that I've spoken to, it's a pretty big problem, both at Del Oro and other high schools in the area. So I think any information that we have with regards to that and how we can help out, I think would be a good cause.
Okay.
I'll bring it back, hopefully October, whenever I can get some stuff pulled together. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, listening to some of our citizens recently and over the last year or two, I'd like to see we take a concerted effort to have our website overhauled at some point.
Yeah, so that was actually, I think that was brought up during our strategic planning session as well. I'm right now looking for 3 informal bids to see how much it would cost to do that, just to get kind of our arms around it. I agree though that our website needs some work, and trying to make sure that people can find stuff easily is one of those things we really need to work on. So I'm going to be reaching out to a couple of companies here in the next week or so, and hopefully bring something back to council if we do need to bring it back up for a contract, depending on the amount.
Cool, thanks, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
And also wanted to kind of get some feedback about our code enforcement officer. I know we talked about having her come additional days, and just wanted to get an update on that.
Yeah, so she's been super busy. Obviously, council increased the contract amount to allow 1 day a week, and then a day and a half. So 1 day, day and a half, 1 day, day and a half, depending on the weeks. I talked to to the company, and they're able to give us 2 days a week now, full time for her. I mean, not full time, but permanently for her. She's got room in her schedule to do that. So I need to talk to Roger, figure out what that impact is to the budget, and if it does impact it to where we need to do a budget adjustment, I'll bring it back at mid-year to do that. She should be able to start 2 days a week, I think, within the next couple of weeks, though, to get caught up on some of those outstanding issues that she's got.
Okay, that's
But
great.
Lots of code enforcement stuff.
Yeah, that's great news.
On that, there's been a backlog of things. You
Yeah.
know, for a couple of years, we didn't have a code enforcement officer, so there's an endless supply of cases to pursue.
Okay, great. And then I just was curious to know about purchasing the building for the library. Sean, what is the status on that? Is it in works?
It's in works. I need to get the meeting set up with the county executive and and Jim Holmes, our district supervisor, and see what I can get pushed forward. So I should be able to get that done within the next couple of weeks as well. Get the meeting set up, and then move it forward as quickly as I can.
Cool, thank you. And I just have one more. On the Public Works status report, Britt, would you mind please adding all ongoing projects, like facilities, Parks and Rec, if we were to have those, and add those to the CIP list that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll have that for you next month.
Thank you. That's it.
It's my understanding that D'Ambrosio boy returned home today.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, any other matters of interest to council members for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Town manager report.
I just got a couple quick things. I don't know if everybody saw in the newspaper, but Taylor's across the way here sold to a family that owns another restaurant in, I think, Roseville, and maybe one in, I think it might be Rockland. I think that they own two different ones. My understanding is that they're going to keep the restaurant operating the way that it is now, not change anything, at least for the short term. And then on Friday, September 20th, there's going to be a Taylor's Community Day here at the depot, where they'll be doing kind of a community event, like a GoFundMe thing to help with Pat Taylor's medical costs. And the new owners of Taylor's will be donating 35% of their profits for that day back to the GoFundMe campaign for Pat. So he's battling cancer. I think most folks know about that, but obviously a big part of this community. So I just want to let council know about that. On the WW molding project, I just wanted to give a quick update on that. Contract awarded, council awarded contract last month to the company to the firm that's going to be taking the hillside down and backfilling the hole that was created through the contamination cleanup. The contractor's equipment had an issue on the water truck, and we can't move that much dirt without a water truck on site. So that should be resolved, and they should be backfilling everything starting this week. So that'll be, and I don't know if folks have seen the little swimming pool that's all of a sudden formed at the bottom of that hole, even though we backfilled it with rock, but it just goes to show how strange the granite rock here works with all the water that comes through. So they thought that the water table was, I think, 3 feet lower than it was. So interesting. I think I talked about this last month. I'm doing the Town Manager Tuesday event each month now on the 4th Tuesday of each month from 9 o'clock to 10:30 here at the depot. Last one, I didn't do much as far as, notifications or anything. I had 3 people show up, so that was good. This time I'm actually going to do some promotion stuff, and I'll have Jenny maybe send some stuff out for me too, to the chamber stuff. But that'll be 4th Tuesday of the month, 9 to 10:30, coffee and bagels and donuts for folks if they want those. And then the inaugural edition of the Loomis Community Connection newsletter that was released at the end of August. You can get that on the town's website. It's actually on the front page of the website. There's a couple copies in the back, and we'll be mailing that out, at least this first edition, to all of the residential addresses in town. So you actually get a hard copy of that. That should be sending out, I think, next week. I should be getting it next week. And then we had one work anniversary that I needed to acknowledge, and so our Public Works Director and Town Engineer Britt Snipes is celebrating his 4th anniversary of the town this month. So, yeah, that's all that I got.
I'm going to step out of order for just a second, and I know there's a lot of young folks in the audience today, and I was going to save these comments for the last part of the meeting during committee reports, but if people leave, I want to get this information to you. I'm on an agency called SACOG, it's Sacramento Area Council of Governments, and we are promoting a youth leadership program, Youth Leadership Academy, for 2019 and 20. So we're offering applications to all high school kids, juniors and seniors who might be interested. It's really a great opportunity to make a connection between youth and public and elected officials. Young people learn how to navigate through public policy and understand how public policy is created. And so if you have further information, please let me know. There's also flyers in the front next to the agendas. It's a great resume builder. This is the 2nd year this has gone on, and there will be 50 kids admitted throughout this greater Sacramento region. And kids, again, interface with congressional members, assembly members, state senators, and so it's really a fantastic opportunity. There's a lot of good information out there on the web about this, so if you're interested, take a look. Again, flyers in the entrance of the council chambers here. Okay, moving on. Loomis Chamber of Commerce update. Jenny?
Good evening, Council, Mayor and Council and staff. I wanted to give you a thank you for that newsletter. I think it was done very well, and I thank the council and staff for putting that together. For the next 25 days, you're going to hear a lot about eggplant. Sorry, but we have an eggplant festival coming up. We're super excited. It actually kicks off the week before. We have Purple Week, where all of our local restaurants are having eggplant dishes that they're serving that week. So come to Loomis all the week. And we have some eggplant being grown in the Loomis Community Garden over at Loomis Grammar School. So that will be here on the 5th of October. And we kick off with a parade with our mayor and our seniors, kicking off with a kazoo parade, so you can pick up a free kazoo. And we have a chalk art contest and a cooking contest. I know, I have to get it all in there. 3 stages of music, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And also, next week we kick off, or this week we kick off our leadership with a meet and greet, and then next week we start our leadership Loomis. We have 17 participants. So. Thank you.
Just a quick summary on what is Loomis Leadership?
Okay, Leadership Loomis is made up of community members and business leaders that meet once a month, and we have presentations from all kinds of agencies, local representatives, transportation, anything to do with Loomis, medical, nonprofit, recreation. It's just different topics every week, and it's in order to help communicate and foster our leadership.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. This time is reserved for those in the audience who wish to address the Town Council on subjects that are not on the agenda. The audience should be aware that the Council may not discuss details or vote on non-agenda items. Your concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. So let's open it up for public comment for items not on the agenda.
Did I say that?
Good evening, council members. Miguel Yukovich, 5911 Craig Court, Loomis, California. Sorry about that. I would like you to reconsider your actions of the last council meeting regarding the King Road on-ramp. If you read, I'm sure you read through the material, and what Caltrans says, in the event that roads become congested, in other words, if Horseshoe Bar becomes totally congested, they would consider allowing an on-ramp or an off-ramp to be placed at King Road. And this would be kind of like an insurance policy. I'm not saying you need it now, and you may never need it, but with your actions from last month, anybody that's looking at it would say, well, you've decided you don't want it, and they would allow the land around there to be developed so you couldn't put on an on-ramp. And you don't need to improve the overcrossing. It would mainly be a 900-foot on-ramp to King Road. So I'd like the council, at least for future generations, to make some kind of statement that, yes, in the event that Horseshoe Bar becomes impacted, we would consider an on-ramp at King Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. David Lavoie, 7220 King Road in Loomis. Sean, I just wanted to see if I could have an update on the Todd Lowell's property, the old gun store that's been there in disarray for over a year and a half.
Yeah, so citation was issued today.
Did you say there was a demolition permit? I mean, you did say that a week ago. That you thought that?
No, I said that he was supposed to come in and get one issued. I know about it. He was supposed to come in and get one issued. He didn't, so he was cited.
So what happens after that then?
So it's in the process now with the citations. He needs to either pay the citation and get the demolition permit issued and demolish the building, or the town has to follow the steps that we have to follow, state law, and potentially demolish it ourselves. I don't know off the top of my head like what the next step is. I know that there's multiple citations we have to follow a process, so and so we're in the middle of that process.
So if nothing is done, then by next month's meeting you'll probably know what the next step is?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie Howard, 7220 King Road in Loomis. And first I wanted to say thank you, Sean, for coming to that meeting, the town talks. I thought that was very beneficial for all of us to just kind of come together and discuss our thoughts and ideas and stuff for the development of Loomis. I thought that was fantastic. One thing I did want to bring up was the article, the NIMBYism, where our Mayor Tim, you were speaking about the village and with the Lowell and True Life Properties, and I think it's very unfortunate. It's very clear that the town, they voted, no, we do not want this development in there, and so we were hoping that that's something that we could put behind and that we could all come together. But when you spoke out in that article, I think it struck a nerve with a lot of people, and it said that you're still holding your ground, you're still going to continue to fight for development, for this development, and obviously we want to see development, but not this type of development. So I thought it was extremely inappropriate as our mayor to stand in that position and to speak against what the people wanted. So you're in a position where you're supposed to be the people's voice, and you're continuing to not do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Please hold your applause.
David Ream, 3486 Delmar. I was talking to a resident just this last month, and they had asked if Loomis had an emergency evacuation plan. And I knew we were working on one, but I was wondering if we could get an update on that. If you know, are we done with it? Is it available, or are we still working on it?
We have one.
Okay.
It's at Town Hall. So the county is in the process of updating. The county puts together the plan for us. They're in the process of doing a county-wide one. Ours will be like some sort of an annex off to it or connected to it. I'm not sure where the county is at in that process. They just hired an OES director that's dedicated to OES for the first time kind of recently, maybe 6 months ago or a year ago. So that's what that person is working on, is pulling all this stuff together. I can find out where it is and report back to council. This has come up in the, previously as well. So I'll bring it back in October and just give council an update on where it is.
Is it something on the website that we can all look at?
I don't think no, because it's a binder like this thick.
Oh, so
but basically, you know, if there's a wildfire in Loomis, the sheriff is going to tell you where to go.
Okay.
Because we do have, you know, different ways to get out of town, and depending on which way the fire is going, you don't want to take the one that's necessarily in the evacuation plan if that road's closed, right? So if there's ever an issue, listen to the sheriff's department, and they'll tell you where you need to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the public comment and move on to the action of the agenda.
I'll move adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Agenda is adopted. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on the consent calendar? Excuse me, the consent agenda. Come on up.
I'd like to comment on number 7, please.
Okay, you want to pull that? All right. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, we have a motion to approve items 1 through 6 and 8 and 9. A motion?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Consent agenda is moved. Okay. Item 7. Any council members have any comment on item 7 at this point? Okay. Dale, what's on your mind?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us about it.
We don't have a staff report prepared or
Oh.
presentation.
Oh, well, I was kind of wondering what kind of restroom you were getting, number 1. So, number 2, well, I guess number 1's really important, because if it's like the one we have right here, I talked to Brett a little bit, why don't you just go to a precast one? And Brett said, well, has a problem with the specifications, but I've got all the necessary specifications from the companies. Now, he said there's something legally that you can't, or at least my interpretation was, legally can't use that, but I checked with one that's done work in California, and they've been able to use their specifications. And then my second concern is that you had 2 architect firms bid on it, but you didn't go out to very many, and I checked with one, Mr. Peaches, who was the architect on this particular building and who has done a lot of restrooms in Roseville, and I asked if he'd been contacted, and he said no. So I'd like to see you maybe go out again, because there's other architectural firms in Placer County that would be interested in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to discuss item 7? Actually, any other public comment on item 7? Seeing here now, we'll close public comment. Anyone want to discuss item 7?
What is the process of going out to bid?
For this project, I reached out to several architects that I have worked with in the past. We did reach out to Mr. Peaches on previous projects, and he didn't get back to us. So I didn't call him on this particular project. That is true. But I have reached out to him in the past, and he hadn't responded. On this one, I reached out to several architects. I asked them to provide me a scope of services and pricing for those services. What we need is design services to design the structure, give us some specifications for what that structure should be. We need to do some site work. We also need to make water connections, sewer connections, electrical connections, make it ADA compliant, make sure that it's constructed to current codes. So for all those things, I deemed it was necessary to hire an architect for that. I reached out to several architects. Only one responded to me, and that was Williams and Patton. They gave me what appears to be a fair price for what we're asking them to do. And so that's why I put it forward to be approved tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Do I entertain a motion on item 7? We have a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Noes, abstains, 7 passes. Okay, so item 10 was publicly notified that we would hear this at 7:30. So being that it's about 6 minutes before that, let's move to item 11 unless there's any objections, and come back to item 10. Okay? Yes. All right. Item 11, keep Placer moving update. Britt's going to give us a presentation.
I'm all over the agenda tonight. So, I'm Britt Snipes, Public Works Director. Tonight, I wanted to bring forward an issue that's kind of coming up. It's called Keep Placer County Moving. I've asked Mike Lucan to come and give us a presentation on this because it's a very important issue for Loomis. Being in Loomis, I don't think we really understand what congestion means to us. And congestion on the freeways and planning for our transportation system is a very important issue to us because when people try to avoid the traffic and the congestion, they use our streets to avoid it, putting extra wear and tear on our streets, putting extra traffic on our streets. So it's very important that we have a voice in this as we try to move forward, try to figure out how to deal with congestion, because over the next 25 years, we're expecting, I think it's 140,000 people moving into the South Placer region. So our current freeway system, 65 and 80, is nearing its capacity. We're planning for the future. We're planning for new improvements, or Placer County is, PCTPA, to their credit, is trying to, give us the structure we need to move people and goods through our region. So this is a very important issue to Loomis, and so I'd like to ask Mr. Lucan to kind of give us a presentation on it.
Okay, thanks, Brett.
Let's see. Oh, forgive me, I'm not very good with computers.
Hello, Mike.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Town Council. My name is Mike Lucan, Executive Director of Placer County Transportation Agency. Thank you for having me here tonight. So tonight, Britt asked me to come in, as he discussed, talk about an effort that we are undertaking regarding assessing the needs of transportation, regional transportation and local transportation in Placer County. Just a little bit of background of who we are for the benefit of those that are not familiar. PCTPA, we are not the county. Sorry, Brett. We are actually a special district. We were created by, frankly, all of the cities and the county board of supervisors. And so our board of directors is a 9-member board made up of a representative from each town or city and 2 members of the board of supervisors and 1 public member. And they meet monthly and they decide the priorities for funding for the county based upon input of all of the cities in the county and the towns and the unincorporated area. And then we make decisions on what should get funded in terms of transportation. A lot of people ask us, well, what's the difference between us and the Sacramento Area Council of Governments that Mayor Durko mentioned earlier? And actually, I would highly recommend that youth program. That is a very good program that hopefully we get a good representation to SACOG for. But the difference between our agencies is again, we were created by the agencies in Placer County, and the reason we were created by them was because we wanted to be actually different than the rest of the region in terms of setting our own priorities. So if you're a member of SACOG, in terms of transportation, you as a town are the policy that is for transportation is set by the entire region. And so about 25 years ago, both Placer County and El Dorado County, when we were forming and reforming these transportation agencies, said, well, we would like to have control of our own destiny. We don't want someone in West Sacramento or Davis telling us what our priorities are or telling us where our transportation funding can go. And so we created PCTPA, and we've been very successful at bringing dollars and setting good policy for implementing transportation projects over the last 25 years, resulting in projects like the Lincoln Bypass was one of our projects we did for the city of Lincoln. Various improvements along Interstate 80, fixing different bottlenecks along I-80, putting in HOV lanes, and then most recently, last week, we did the ribbon cutting for the completion of Highway 65 80 interchange phase 1, a very, very important project to the community. And so our purpose is, again, really to first come up with a plan, usually a 20 to 40-year plan for transportation. We're actually right in the middle of doing that right now. And our board of directors is grappling with that. Your representative on the board is Brian Baker, and Jeff Duncan is the alternate. And so we're going through a process of determining what is. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Clark-Kretz. Jeff used to be our alternate, so sorry about that. So we're going through this process to determine what should be our priorities over the next 20 years for transportation funding. And when I'm talking about transportation, yes, a lot of what we do is roads and highways. From a regional standpoint, but we also do transit. We are the agency that funds transit through local transportation funding dollars. We also do bike ped or alternative transportation projects. We either implement those projects or we are the kind of the connective tissue in terms of doing bikeway master plans that connect all our communities and their own bikeway master plans and pedestrian master plans. And then we do a bunch of miscellaneous things. We are the Airport Land Use Commission. So when somebody proposes something near the Auburn, Lincoln, or Blue Canyon Airport, they have to come to us to make sure it doesn't have any impact upon the airport and that the airport doesn't have any impact upon the public. And then we do a bunch of little things. As I mentioned, we do the Freeway Service Patrol, which is actually a congestion relieving activity that we do with the state of California, that we position a towing crew during peak commute hours along our freeways from Lincoln down to Roseville, and from Roseville all the way up to Auburn during peak commute hours There's a free towing service that basically will get you off the road. You know, a lot of times it'll take, you know, hours to get a AAA tow, but this company will get you off the road and basically relieve that clog or back up in that roadway. So that's another very important activity. So I wanted to show a quick video here of our latest project.
Interstate 80 and Highway 65 are our two major transportation corridors for residents and commuters. I'm John Allard. I'm the mayor of the city of Roseville, and just wanted to talk a little bit about Interstate 80 and Highway 65. It is estimated that I-80 carries nearly $5 million an hour in goods movement, while the Highway 65 corridor is the region's home to a burgeoning commercial and professional business district. The South Placer region's local economy is dependent upon a modern transportation system that moves people and goods efficiently and safely. Roseville has been working closely with Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Caltrans, the cities of Rockland and Lincoln, and Placer County to improve Highway 65 and the I-80 Highway 65 interchange. Fixing an interchange that connects two major corridors is not a simple fix. The overall solution includes a comprehensive look at how traffic circulates along both highway corridors and along adjacent local streets. PCTPA and its partners were able to assemble $50 million from 5 different funding sources to pay for the first phase of this project, which includes adding a third lane on northbound Highway 65 from I-80 to Pleasant Grove and improvements to the Galleria Boulevard Stanford Ranch Road interchange. Construction on the first phase started last April, and today the construction crews have completed the final deck of a new lane on Highway 65. This structure was reinforced with 3.5 million pounds of steel. The concrete poured on top of the reinforcements equals 12,000 cubic yards, which is enough concrete to fill 150 residential swimming pools. Improvements to the interchange will eliminate the traffic weaving as motorists exit from Highway 65 northbound and try to make their way over to turn left onto 5 Star Boulevard near Costco, making it safer. The Interstate 80 Highway 65 interchange was designed more than 30 years ago when our county's population was around 136,000. Today our population has more than doubled, and the I-80 Highway 65 interchange now acts as a bottleneck for travelers in both corridors. Unfortunately, with traffic congestion comes many more collisions.
In my 16 years working with the Rockland Police Department, I have unfortunately witnessed numerous accidents along the Interstate 80 Highway 65 corridor. By improving the interchange infrastructure, I hope to see less congestion, giving way to less accidents, and increased safety for our residents and visitors.
As it stands, the interchange is not suited to safely accommodate the amount of people that drive on it every day. Roseville is home to 2 major regional hospitals, and delays on either I-80 or State Route 65 mean emergency ambulances have to make detours through our city to get patients to the hospital.
With the number of accidents on the increase on Highway 65 and Interstate 80, we're certainly concerned about our ability to respond to and arrive at the scene of an accident in an expeditious manner. The quicker that we can get to an accident, the better. And if you think about it, any traffic backups are going to cause a delay in transportation of anybody who's requiring medical treatment from the scene to a hospital.
A little over a year ago, I was injured in a bicycle accident near Lincoln. I was being transported by ambulance to a Roseville hospital and I was in a lot of pain. I was in a neck brace. I did not appreciate all the twists, turns, and bumps that the ambulance had to take in order to avoid the interchange and get me to the hospital. It was painful.
By improving the infrastructure at the corridor of Highway 65 and Interstate 80, we will be saving lives.
While the first phase will provide some relief for travelers right away, it will only address northbound traffic from the interchange to Pleasant Grove Boulevard. It will not address any southbound traffic problems or the anticipated growth in traffic over the next 30 years. To address the future, we will need to secure an additional $400 million, which won't be easy since we've tapped most all our resources to fund the first phase, and we lack local matching funds for any future phases of the interchange, the widening of Highway 65, and many other congestion improvements in South Placer County. We look forward to working with the community in solving this problem. We want everyone to make it to their destination safely, so it is imperative that we find a way to fully fund this and many other critical planned traffic congestion problems. It's time to finish the job.
So this video focused on the 8065 interchange and the improvements that are needed to that interchange. That interchange, the total cost of it was $450 million, of which we were able to cobble together the last remaining funding from a lot of different projects. We usually have projects that come in usually on time and under budget, and in this project's no different, where we had some projects on Interstate 80 that we were able to take $8 million from those projects and move it into this project. But the problem is that there's two things happening. One is the state is growing, and so the need for transportation resources is increasing, but yet the population is increasing, and so it's becoming increasingly harder to achieve this. And the other thing is that there are what are called self-help counties, and in California there's an ability that the state has given local agencies to create transportation sales taxes to fund transportation. And in California there's 26 of those, of which we are not one, and we're actually one of the largest counties in California that doesn't have one of those in place to help fund that gap, if you will, or that local match. And so Placer County was actually has done a pretty good job in planning for growth, and it's planned for growth since the 1960s. When it first planned for State Highway 65, expansion of Interstate 80, and other improvements. But what's happened is when all that growth was planned, we were under a different funding formula. So, and how we funded Highway 65 interchanges, phase one was under this different formula, where the federal government would either fund 80 or 90% of a project, and we as the local government would come up with the matching funds for that. And how we did that is we created impact fees on new development, and so new development paid for that. We charge them the maximum fees that you can in Placer County for impact on transportation, and that paid for that match. But what's happening now is, in order to, and it's not to be, the state has still has a low threshold for what qualifies for matching funds. So if you go to the Caltrans website, you'll see that you can still submit an application for that, that comes up with 20% matching funds. But the problem is, in order to be competitive, you have to have almost 50% match. So dollar for dollar is what is required now. And we simply don't have that. We have a gap. We have a problem. And we're not unique. Many other agencies in California have that problem. 26 of them solved it. The rest of them, of which we're part of that, have not. And so that's basically the problem in transportation funding, is that the formula has changed along with population growth. So a lot of people then ask, well, wait a minute, we just approved a change in the gas tax. Wasn't that supposed to pay for that? It took us 12 years to pass Senate Bill 1, and then it went through a recall effort. Doesn't that pay for that? Well, no, it doesn't. Actually, SB 1 is very much needed, but what it was designed for is to fix our roads and to fix our transit. It had a moniker called Fix It First. And so it set aside money for repairing our roads, and we have a tremendous backlog. Placer County has over an $800 million backlog, of which SB 1 is it makes a good dent, but it's still much more is needed. It did create a very small pot of money for the very, very worst congestion in the state, and unfortunately we don't have a prayer of getting that money, because it's really designed for the area around the seaports of Oakland and LA and Long Beach, and so we probably will not have a chance of getting that funding. So mostly it's set up for that, and so we actually cannot use a penny of that for the projects that we're talking about: the 8065 interchange, the 65 widening, the improvements to the Horseshoe Bar interchange, Nelson Road interchange, Placer Parkway, or any of those. We have to, it's still upon us to find that local match. And I mentioned this, you know, we relied upon, with this $3 billion in need, we went out and we told the development community with Placer Growing that, you know, you're responsible for paying for this match. And in the old days it worked. You know, they're coming up with, of that three-legged stool, they're coming up with 1.95 billion of that, but there is a gap because of this funding formula change of about 1.25 billion dollars. It's even hard to even say that number, that we need to come up with to solve that problem. So we tried this, and we tried this back in 2016. We tried it on a county-wide basis, and so we went, you may remember that we proposed Measure M on a county-wide basis, and county-wide we came up short. We came up 2 percentage points short. But had we only focused on the South County, and 93% of the sales tax dollars are earned in the South County, and about 95% of the projects that are needed to address traffic congestion are in the South County. Had the South County had we focused just on the South County, it would have passed overwhelmingly. We had some precincts in South Placer with over 80% of the people voted for it. And so our board said, you know, we're probably not going to be successful at doing a county-wide measure again. Go out and see if we can work with some other counties and come up with a method to do this. And so we went out and worked with about 12 other counties, and we formed a coalition, and we actually have a bill pending in the legislature, Assembly Bill 1413, which would give us the ability to create a sub-county district, so just South Placer County. And with the hope that will be a method that the board, our board, and then the Board of Supervisors, if they so choose, could put that measure on the ballot for the south part of the county. We also, we don't do this with, you know, just guesswork. We actually go out and poll the community and all of the community in South Placer County to see is this still an important issue? And this was a poll that we did in February. We actually oversampled in the town of Loomis, and we do that to make sure that, because the town of Loomis is smaller, we got to make sure that the survey is right, and the data coming out of it is right, and still it remains in the top 3 issues in terms of issues for the community. It was number 1, it dropped to number 2, the cost of health care being the largest. And then the third one, and it's truncated here, but it's one we have to watch out for, and that's kind of related to that SB1 discussion, and that is what it finishes off is saying waste and mismanagement in state government. And so we oftentimes get painted with the state. The state tells us, well, give us money for this, and then they spend it on something else. And so we need to make sure that if we are going to do a measure, if this is something that Loomis and its counterparts wants to do, we need to make sure that we absolutely have it locked up tight, that it only goes to Loomis. And that's what a local sales tax measure or some other method could do. And you add to that oversight, which many communities that do this have citizens oversight commissions, and we ensure that those dollars stay here locally. So I'll end on a video that we have. This is we did a virtual reality on what it could look like in terms of the rest of the county, in terms of these improvements, and I'd like to share that with you as I conclude.
Hello, I'm Krista Bernasconi, Vice Mayor for the City of Roseville. Roseville is one of the cities represented on the board of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, or more commonly known as PCTPA. South Placer County is one of the most desirable places to live and work in California. People and businesses relocate to our region every day for our quality of life, excellent schools, low crime rates, beautiful parks, close proximity to Sacramento, San Francisco, and Lake Tahoe. However, traffic congestion threatens our quality of life and our ability to meet the demands of our residents and businesses. One thing is for certain, we need to do something. Over the next 20 years, we expect South Placer region will grow by another 180,000 residents. congestion will only get worse. We now find ourselves in a reality where our outdated transportation infrastructure is affecting our ability to attract and retain businesses, hurting our local economy. Let's imagine for a moment that we did have a local funding source that we could use as a match to attract money from the state and federal government for I-80 Highway 65 interchange design and safety improvements and the Highway 65 widening. What does that do for South Placer County drivers? If there was funding, I-80 Highway 65 interchange design and safety improvements and the Highway 65 widening would drastically change the transportation landscape in South Placer County and relieve congestion on our two major highways. We are doing what we can with the funding that's available, but it's not enough. We need a local funding source to fix our congested highways, to prepare for our future, and to ensure our dollars stay local. To learn more about South Placer County's funding needs, visit keepplacermoving.com.
So we are in this mode right now of doing an outreach, and so we are seeking input from meetings just like this in front of councils and community groups to see if this is the direction we want to go as a county, as a south part of the county to create a funding source or not. And so we're doing a lot of outreach to the community, participating in community events, sponsoring things like the Eggplant Festival and other key events to basically direct people to the information so that they can make an educated decision whether they want to move this forward or not. The last thing I would address is kind of, and I think it was in your staff report as well, what does this mean for Loomis? And there's, I think, three things. One is the regional roadways. We focus a lot on regional roadways and regional transit, and what does this mean? And so there's things in there like 8065 and the 65 widening and other things. There are transit projects for commuter transit. We're expanding the California Capital Service with these dollars and other regional projects. But specifically what's in it for Loomis is in addition to those regional projects, because we all shop, live, and work throughout the county, but also Sierra College Boulevard is part of the funding for this project. So completing Sierra College Boulevard beyond what the development community has to, their commitments to improve it. The Horseshoe Bar Interchange was selected by the town of Loomis back in 2016 when we did this before. It remains as a key improvement in here. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, is 25% of this $1.2 billion that could be generated by a sales tax measure would be essentially given to the town of Loomis to decide what it wants to do in terms of projects that benefit the community, whether it be safe routes to schools, or whether it be improvement of Taylor Road, or whatever your priority is. There is actually a local pot of money that would provide Loomis and the other cities with an ability to fund local problems. And that's a very important part of it, and I wanted to mention that tonight. So for that, I'll conclude, and I don't know if Britt has any wrap-up comments, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Comments, questions, council?
I just have one quick question, Mike. You said that the federal contributions were 90% at one time. What are they now?
Well, again, there's a very important technical thing to look at. So when you go to, like, say, the Federal Highways Manual for funding a certain type of federal transportation funding, it says basically you have to come up with 11.87% of the project. But the problem is the funds are very, very scarce. And so yes, you qualify for funding, so you can put together an application and you qualify for it, but only those communities that are putting up at least 50%, if not more, of the local match are actually getting funding. And that is now trickling down to the state level as well. And so it's a matter of it's very important to notice it's a matter of not what's eligible, but what's competitive. And we have to be competitive, or we don't get anything.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for the presentation. I know it's very, very important for our citizens to hear about this prospective measure. I have a question on the Assembly Bill 1413. So at this point, there's no boundary lines drawn on that, correct?
Correct. So it will, what we will be doing is we will be doing a poll in January, and that poll will, if it confirms the same thing that we did last February, then we will make a recommendation that the 4 contiguous cities, which is what is allowed under the Assembly Bill 1413, be included in the proposed ballot measure. And then our board then takes our recommendation, and then they place the matter on the ballot, and then the Board of Supervisors, if the procedures are followed properly, then puts it on the November 2020 ballot.
Okay. So basically, if Loomis comes in low on the polls, we won't be included in the boundary, potentially.
That is a decision of our board.
Okay.
But yes, and it's not just Loomis, it's any of the communities that we this, as you noticed in the video with the police folks, this is a life safety issue. It's very, very serious, and we have to get this approved. And so any community, whether it be Loomis or Rockland or Roseville or Lincoln, that if they don't want to be in it, they don't have to be in it. It's their choice. But what we want to do is, again, we're educating so that people can make an informed choice of whether they want to do this or not.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Comment.
Mr. Baker?
Mike, thank you for the presentation and the regional approach to transportation. I mean, we know here in Loomis when there's a problem down at 8065, because Taylor Road's backed up and some of our other surface streets are backed up. So we do need to take a more regional look at transportation here in Loomis to help affect change, not only for our way of life, but for all of South Placer. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's very important that you all have discussed cut-through traffic, and that is something that's unique to Loomis, that when 80 backs up, you guys are heavily impacted. In fact, I think is it this weekend that Echo Summit is going to be closed? So US 50 is going to be closed. Everyone has to go on Interstate 80 this weekend, and so it's going to be bad. So sorry, but that's going to be case in point that we need to do something. So
thank you.
Thanks. Oh, and I handed out to everybody and left some copies of our promotional brochures as well.
Mike, so
yes,
I agree with Councilmember Baker. It is a regional issue, but it's also a local issue. We don't have road money is very scarce here in Loomis, and SB1 is just not cut it. I think we get $150,000 a year roughly from SB1 money, and if we're not carved into that district, then it's going to be really hard for Loomis to raise any money for just basic maintenance on our roads, not to mention new stuff that might or might not come up. So you know, nobody likes raising taxes, but I think this is one thing that most people can agree on. Nobody wants to sit in traffic. It is a quality of life issue. It also provides jobs, and there's a backlog in Loomis for projects that need to be addressed, and we really don't have a funding source for those things. So it's incredibly important for the community to understand that as we become less reliant on the gas tax and cars become more efficient, we just have less money coming in for transportation. And so I'd encourage folks in the audience and voters to reach out to your locals and your state representatives, and when polling starts coming out and phone calls start rolling, understand that this is very important for Loomis. I'd also propose, we're going to open up for public comment in just a second, but I'd also propose writing a letter of support for AB 1413 on behalf of the town. Have you taken a position on that bill yet?
We haven't written one yet, but we do need to do that.
Okay. Do we want to discuss that, council? Are there any objections to it?
No.
It would be important to have unanimous support for that from the council. So this would be a good time to just vet that a little bit.
No, absolutely. I mean, our traffic, we're impacted. Our population has not increased. And look at the suffocating traffic that we have from pass-through traffic like Mike was talking about, and we literally have no way to fix that. So it's hugely important for citizens to understand, and I think it's hugely important for us to support it.
So it sounds like you've got direction there, Sean. You want to talk about who writes the letter? And
I'll write it with Mike's assistance, and then it would go out under signature of the mayor.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mike. Just
Thank
stay
you.
right there if you would. We're going to open up for public comment, unless there's any other comments from council. Okay, anyone from the public wanting to address this issue?
Just want to make one. David Ring, 2486 Tomorrow. I just want to say on that last video, I know you talked about mass transit, but the last video you showed was like, this is what we really want to see, and I saw no mass transit on that at all. And it's like, if you're going to dream big, and don't just the 6 lanes and no trains or anything at all. Seemed a little excessive.
And I'm sorry, we do these videos, and we're still doing a bunch. In fact, you'll see one tomorrow, which focuses on economic development, and we are going to do one on transit. But so in our $1.2 billion expenditure plan, there is a very significant amount of money. I think it's to the tune of about $150 to $200 million that would be set aside for two non-vehicular forms of transportation. One is public transit, as was mentioned by the gentleman, and also alternative modes of transportation, so bike ped and those items as well. And so there'll be a very, very significant amount of funding set aside for those, because we, as many have said, we can't build our way out of this solution. Certainly, we plan for these expansions. So all these projects, we already have the right of way, and we plan to expand these roadways. But we can't just do one thing. We have to do roads and transit and bike ped and other forms of transportation. We have to do all of them, because if we don't do all of them, we won't solve the congestion problem.
Any other public comment?
Hi, Miguel Yukovich, 5911 Craig Court. About 4 or 5 years ago, I talked to the executive director of that, at that time, Celia McAdams, and I said, Celia, what are we going to do about this traffic congestion? And Celia was a very honest person. And she said, the only way you're going to solve traffic congestion is stop development in South Placer County. And that's not going to happen. As you hear, you're going to add 176,000 people, probably have about 350,000 more car trips a day. How many people will Loomis add? Maybe 1,000. But they're asking us. Now, granted, we're going to get some impact from that. But the plans that they have, they can only add one more lane to Interstate 80 going down to Sacramento on one side. They can do some work for $440,000 on 65. But that's basically all the plans that I've heard. They have another alternative that they need to put up in priority, and that's basically Placer Parkway, that would hopefully pull off some of the congestion off Interstate 80. But they're asking the residents of Loomis to pay a half-cent sales tax, and town engineer said we don't have any money. Well, if we passed a half-cent sales tax and Costco comes in, we would have $2 to $3 million to use on roads ourselves right here. But we're going to use part of that. We're going to get 25%, and the money's going to be used to help South Placer County develop. Let's be honest about that. That's what that vote's for. Let's get more people, more houses, more traffic in South Placer County. And I don't think, as you can see from Measure C and D, people of Loomis really don't want that. We probably don't have any effect on it, one way or the other. But to add a half-cent of our sales tax into it, I don't think it's a fair situation.
Great. Any other public comment?
Jean Wilson, 4301 Barton Road, and I basically have a few questions, so maybe I should ask them and then let him answer.
Please.
One was about the polling questions, and if congestion was the second most important item, I was wondering, was it specified that this is looking at congestion in South Placer County rather than the local congestion? Because if they don't indicate, a lot of people here brought up, because of the village, that was a big factor, was the congestion right here in Loomis. So if you just say it's congestion, traffic congestion, they're going to say, yeah, it sure is, but they may be thinking Loomis specific congestion and not necessarily overall Placer County. So I wondered how that polling question was done, and polling questions are very careful. If you want the right answer, you have to ask the right question. You said the majority of, no, not the majority, you said money would stay in Loomis. I presume that's that portion that you said would come back. And I was going to ask what sales tax, and it sounds like that's 0.5%. A comment was that you said it would improve Interstate 80, as was mentioned in the 2016 measure. And all Loomis was scheduled to get from the 2016 was really an extension of our on-ramp and not any real help to do anything with expanding our overcrossing or what we really need here in Loomis. So if that's all that's meant is go back to 2016, I don't think that gets us where we want to go. So thank you.
Thank you. Mike, could you address this question?
Sure. So the polling question is, we actually asked both questions. We asked regional questions, so we asked about regional traffic congestion, and then we asked for local traffic congestion in your community, and we asked each community that. So, and they both polled very, very high in terms of importance to folks. And so what you see in that number, in that slide, was an average of the two, but it's still rated very, very high in terms of importance to the public. We polled in February, and we polled in all the communities in the South Placer County, including Loomis. And in Loomis, as I mentioned, when you have small towns, in order to get a representative sample, you have to oversample, and so we actually sampled more people in Loomis than any other community on a percentage basis. The second question was, what is in it for Loomis, in terms of roadway? And yes, there is 25% of the money is set aside for cities and towns and the county to use on projects that they see fit as important to address roadway issues. But the projects that are in the plan are there's $25 million in the proposed expenditure plan for Horseshoe Bar interchange, and that's to essentially upgrade the entire interchange. And then there is dollars in there for improvement of Sierra College Boulevard And then on Interstate 80, there are two projects, and they're called auxiliary lane projects. So there's if you go from the interchange to Rockland to Rockland Road, you lose a lane there, and so that would restore the lane. So when you get off when you're going from 65 southbound to 80 eastbound, you would be able to stay in that lane and get off at Rockland Road if you're going to Sierra College. That's one of the remaining choke points. The other one is down on westbound in the city of Roseville, between Douglas Boulevard and Riverside. You have that same situation where your lane is eliminated, and if you want to go from Douglas to Riverside, you have to merge back into traffic, which creates that backlog. So those are the projects that are in there. So I think that was there
any other public comment? Thank you, Mike.
David Lavoie, 7220 King Road. I wanted to ask, because I'm kind of in private business, and I apologize, but I'm not familiar with this, but it sounded like Miguel just said, we as a town I thought it was a sales tax was a county thing, the town of Loomis can have a higher sales tax, is that correct?
So each individual municipality in the state can approve a sales tax increase on its own.
Yeah.
Right, so the town could decide to do its own sales tax measure. The chances of us doing that and being able to actually be successful to get anything done is pretty slim. I mean, we wouldn't ever get enough money to do enough with if we did that on our own.
Can you clarify that for me? You mean the chances of us being able to have approval on that from the state of California, or?
No, it's approved by the voters. So if we decided to do it so a perfect example is the library tax, right? So the library, there was a sale and use tax that was approved. It's a quarter cent, right? Quarter cent sales tax for the library. That money is generated on sales tax generating businesses here. So if you buy a soda at Rayleigh's, you pay a quarter extra sales tax. That sales tax stays in Loomis. The issue for us is that we've got Costco coming in, hopefully. We don't know yet, hasn't been approved. So let's say that Costco does come in, and then we did like a half-cent sales tax for road projects here. We wouldn't generate the amount of money, like the $25 million for the Horseshoe Bar interchange. We wouldn't get that amount of money from a half-cent sales tax here. It would take, I don't know how long it would take, but.
Do we have to designate what that money is to go to?
Yes.
Specific, we can't just say, we would like to increase our sales tax by 0.5%.
There's two ways to do it. There's a specific use tax that requires 2/3 of voter approval, right? So you say, we are going to use this sales tax. This is backwards, by the way. Like, it makes no sense the way this is done by the state, but this is how it is. The state requires it. So if you say what you're going to spend the money for, that requires 2/3 public vote, right? So 66%. If you say we're going to use it on anything general fund related, you only have to get 50% plus 1. So you would think that if you're telling people what you're going to actually use the money for, you'd have a lower threshold, but it's backwards the way that the state set up the taxing agency.
So at face value, as I hear that idea presented from Miguel, that to me sounds like a very smart idea and something to discuss moving forward with Costco coming in, and who knows how much sales they're going to do and how much extra revenue that we can get as a town that will help us with not just road projects, but
yeah, we're anticipating about $1 million in new sales tax revenue from them. So if you add in an extra 0.5%, I don't know what that figures out to, but the issue for Loomis is that if we're cut out of the district and we're not part of the district, how often do Loomis residents shop in Rockland, Roseville, anywhere in South County, Lincoln, right? We don't have enough stuff to buy here for people to spend their sales tax money here. We have a huge sales tax leakage problem. And so let's say that you want to buy anything you can't buy here at Rayleigh's, right? Like you need to buy pillows. Where do you go for pillows? Okay, if you're not a Costco member, then you go to Walmart, you go to Target, maybe Amazon, whatever. People shop other places than Loomis.
Right.
And if you're shopping in Rockland and Rockland's in the district, you're paying that same sales tax anyway, and we don't get anything for that because we're not part of the district.
So if we, as the town of Loomis, and pardon me, because I'm going a little long here, but we as the town of Loomis raise our sales tax, let's say 0.5%, what does that have to do with being in the district? I mean, we can still go to Rockland, we can still go to Walmart.
We wouldn't generate the same funds that we're getting. We're basically.
I'm sorry, let's finish up on your questions and we'll have staff answer. I don't want to prolong this back and forth, so please finish up with your questions and then we'll shut down your time and then staff will respond, okay?
Okay, obviously I'm not understanding after he answers my question. Do you want me to sit down and then come back up and ask another question after he?
I want you to extend your expired 3 minutes and then he can respond.
Okay.
I don't want to do back and forth debates and conversations.
And I apologize if you feel this is a debate, Sean.
No.
I'm just trying to understand.
Sure.
So we're within a district, so we don't, I guess what I don't understand is, I guess my question is, what difference does it make? So we go to Walmart sometimes and buy stuff in Rockland. Well, I think there's going to be a lot of people in Rockland, especially on the edge there of where Rockland and Loomis come together. Obviously, Walmart's doing okay in that same general area. So my thought is that actually sounds like an idea that that might warrant further discussion, that might be a kind of a goose that lays golden eggs for us in the future and might solve a lot of our problems financially that we have here in Loomis.
Let's hold your response. Okay.
And then one more thing was the part of the village project was to put in, like, extend the Dock Barnes Drive Road. And I think that they were going to fund that, but it wasn't, but that's kind of on our land or something, right? So my thought was, I mean, wasn't that only supposed to be a couple $1 million? It seems like that may alleviate traffic if we fund that ourselves, the town. And then I also like the idea that Miguel brought up as far as entertaining a freeway on-ramp, off-ramp at King Road. It seems like that might alleviate a lot of traffic downtown in Taylor Road and Horseshoe Bar Road.
Thanks. Thank you.
So, okay, so your basic question is, why don't we go it alone and do our own sales tax measure to fund transportation improvements? The answer to that is because if we go it alone, we're only using our sales tax money. We don't get the opportunity to do this 50% matching by virtue of being a self-help county, because we're not a county, we're a city or town. So we don't have the opportunity to get as much matching money as we would on an economy of scale as you do if you've got a county-wide or sub-county-wide sales tax measure. You asked about Dock Barnes Drive. Dock Barnes Drive isn't on our property, it's on the developer's property, and it was estimated to be $18 million. There's no way that we could build that length of a road for $2 million. And then the third one, King Road.
We discussed that last
Yeah, so King Road is not taken off the table. King Road is actually still on the table. If you look in the minutes, the way that it's, what was, there's no real direction to staff, but it was that we need to continue to look at this. Jan made the point of we've got a serious traffic problem and King Road could help resolve that. So King Road's not off the table. The issue that we have is figuring out how we prioritize our time and our resources and how much time and resource we spend on King Road versus Horseshoe Bar interchange, that we would actually be able to get something done there quicker.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
I just wanted to say that possibly, if it's still confusing, that maybe they could come to the fourth Tuesday and ask more questions at that time. But it sounds like sales tax is a big confusing thing, and I think that's one of the topics that's on our town talks. So I think that's coming up in the future in December, maybe, I think. But anyway, just want to say.
Thank you, Jen. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing here none. My question for you is AB 1413, is that lowering the threshold from 2/3 to 55?
No, no, we have never proposed to lower that threshold, so it still requires a 2/3 majority.
Just a special district?
Yes.
Okay, any other comments, questions, council? Okay, thank you, Mike, appreciate it. Okay, let's move back to item 10, Recology requests for rate increase. And we have a representative here from Recology.
Yes, we actually have 3 if we need them. This is Tisha Gill from Recology, and she's going to kind of walk us through some of this rate increase. Just so everybody knows, We have not had a rate increase for 3 years. Recology we have a contract with them for 25 years. It expires in 2024, and they have the ability to come to us every year and ask for a rate increase to cover their costs. It's based on inflation. They haven't done it for 3 years, so they're doing a little bit of catch up, and that's why it's a significant amount. We've been very happy with Recology's performance so far, so staff recommends that we would accept this, but it's a public hearing, so I don't think Recology has a presentation on this, but if there are questions, we can certainly answer them.
Okay, comments, questions from council?
I have a question. Having lived here a long time, we used to receive these blue bags for recycling, and we would go to the trouble of cleaning our recyclables, put them in the blue bag, and then put them in our toter. And we stopped getting the blue bags, and my wife called and to find out what was going on. And they said, just throw them in the garbage, the recyclables in the garbage. But there's a problem with that because you're mixing your garbage with dirty, your recyclables with dirty, and I'm not sure. Maybe the recycling facility has a way of separating and cleaning that, and I'd love to go see that. But it seems like in light of what has happened in China with the dirty recyclables reaching China and then them cutting it off, that we have a problem that needs to be addressed. And I was just wondering how that works as far as the recycling goes.
Sure. So good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for having me. My name is Tisha Gill. I'm actually new with Recology. I've been with Recology for a couple months now. Been in the waste industry for several years, over 15 years. To answer your question, yes, your material here goes to what is called a dirty MRF. Doesn't sound very pleasant, but it basically is a MRF that handles both the trash and the recyclable material that is comprised in one bin. So you may hear in other cities you have 3 carts, a trash cart, a recycle cart, and a green waste cart. That recyclable material would go to what is called a clean MRF, where they're just processing recyclable material. So they're dropping all of those recyclables, and it's going on a line, and it's being separated into paper, to cardboard, to aluminum, glass, and then it's being baled and shipped out to its market. Your material gets combined with your trash. It's sent to a processing center, a dirty MRF, where it's going on a line with the trash, and it's being separated just the same way, except that, to your point, it has the trash combined. There are, I think, different theories on that process, but that is exactly where that material goes. And to your point with the market's changed a great deal in the last 2 years. They've gotten much stricter with what's accepted in terms of contamination. So we have to ensure that our product is cleaner. So the MRF does a very good job of separating that material out. Your paper's going to be baled and shipped out to a paper company within the United States. We're looking at other places. China's not one of them currently, but the aluminum goes through the process and gets sold to a market. So the difference between a dirty MRF and a clean MRF is that the trash is also included and being separated out within the process, and that is where the material is going.
Yeah, I'd like to set up, if possible, a tour, and maybe with the Ecology Club. I believe they're here tonight. And the other question I have is, with batteries, I used to go to CVS and they had a bin for batteries. You put the batteries in, buy your new batteries. Well, now, I don't see anywhere to put the batteries, and when I looked up on the site, it said drive out to the dump. So I have to hold on to my batteries and make a trip to the dump. I'd like to see some type of
drop-off locations.
Yeah, because it seems like to me that you would have a problem with batteries just ending up in the trash.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
I specifically can't say that that's a problem, but it is something we would want to avoid. You're absolutely right. So I'll look into what drop-off locations we might have in this area. I'll look into that.
So I just wanted to understand about the blue bags. They're no longer going to be provided for?
No, and I'm sorry, I didn't finish. I guess I should have mentioned that they still are available. I think that you got a rep that explained to you the process, that it is going to be sent to a facility that will process that material too, regardless if it's in a blue bag or not.
Okay.
If it's in a blue bag, to his point, it's all going to be, I guess, contained, so it's not mixed with maybe a dirty diaper. So that's where the contamination is less impacted, and the blue bags are still available.
Okay. I think what would be great is, because I think the town was working with Recology on that blue bag effort, it would be nice if there was a script maybe that our townspeople could have when calling into Recology about the program. And I have a question about the organics. So at this point, there's no separation of organics versus the recyclable materials?
Correct. Organics is going into your trash still. Or now, organics is two pieces. It's food, and then it's green waste. So you do have the ability to have a green waste cart. Organics, as far as food is concerned, is still going into trash. There is a law coming out, SB 1383, that will require residents to process their organics. So we are preparing and actually working to get prepared for that. In addition, there is a law that has been around for a while, that is AB 1826, and that's the commercial law. So if you produce 4 cubic yards or more of trash, you are required to recycle your organic material. In commercial businesses, you either see one or the other. For example, a strip mall is going to have usually their green waste handled by a landscaper, and that's usually sent to a place where it's processed properly and not sent to a landfill. And then you have McDonald's, a company like that would produce food waste. And so that material, we have been working with the city and been very successful in starting to collect that material and process it at the same MRF that processes your other material, but they do process the organics. So it's not being sent to the landfill. And we've been meeting with Cal Recycle, and your product actually looks really good here in terms of the commercial organics piece, but the residential is yet to come. The site that we take this material to isn't ready to take that material combined. So as a resident, you would take your food waste and add it to your green waste cart. So then you're usually going to have a composition of really 90% green waste and then 10% food waste. The site is not ready to take that mix yet. They're still taking it either food waste or green waste separated. But we'll get there, and we'll be there before the law changes for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you. We're going to open it up for public comment.
Sure.
There's kids from Del Oro.
Yep.
Want to make some comments?
Okay, hello, my name is K.Benedict. I am the co-president of the Environmental Club at Del Oro High School, and I have come here today with some of the officers and the members. And as active environmentalists, we are always looking for ways to make our school and community more environmentally conscious. So, we have come here today to express some concerns and present some proposals that we would like you guys to consider. First, I would like to introduce a proposal that we would like the council to consider. We have come up with an idea that will reduce the amount of waste in our landfills. The proposal is to implement a subscription-based food scraps program here in Loomis, where Recology provides those who sign up for it with a small container, similar to this, and biodegradable bags, which come in packets like this. And throughout the week, the residents will collect their food scraps and food sold papers, such as egg cartons, egg shells, vegetables, things like that. And at the end of the week, they will take the biodegradable bag with the food scraps and food sold papers, and they will put that into the green trimmer bin, which then goes off and gets composted. Now, not only is this good for the environment, but reducing organic waste from our landfills is something that we need to start acting upon, considering the new state requirements under SB 1383, which you mentioned. And that requires 75% of all organics to be removed from landfills by 2025. This food scraps program concept that we're proposing to you today has been proven in various cities, specifically in the Bay Area, and it has helped participants reduce their waste by nearly 35%, considering that our trash is composed of nearly 1/3 organic waste that can easily be diverted from our landfills and be composted instead. Now, since our town is so small, it would be beneficial to Recology so that they can see how one of these programs works out in this area. In this way, they can expand it to other cities on a larger scale in the future when the regulations take effect in 2022. So, we urge you to please consider this proposal and hopefully take action as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay.
Please. Name and address, please.
Oh, Jack Galloway, 3425 Market Drive, Loomis. So I'm the co-president of the Environmental Club. Recology can help Loomis become more environmentally friendly by encouraging and promoting the still in effect super recycler rate, which was with the blue bags. This super recycler rate was put in place by former Mayor Gary Liss. This program includes a reduced rate for residents who sign up to use a 32-gallon trash bin instead of the commonly used 90-gallon bin. Additionally, Recology provides blue bags for recycling, and residents can use those to collect recycling. The town of Loomis should promote this program, as it would also help meet the 75% landfill waste reduction by 2025, a component of State Bill 1383. We would like to request a status report from Recology about how many people have subscribed for the reduced rate so far. When I called Recology for information about the rate, their staff was not clearly informed about the program. A representative from Recology had to ask a supervisor for more information about the rate. After a few minutes, the representative was finally able to identify the super recycler rate. However, she did not encourage the program as much as we would have liked to see. We urge the town council to promote this rate, and we urge Recology to educate its staff about this program and promote it as a means of saving money, saving our environment, and preparing for the state requirements under SB 1383. Thank you for listening to my thoughts. I've lived in Loomis my whole life, and I generally want to improve Loomis, just as everybody else here does as well, I'm sure. Please consider this idea.
Hello, I am Sean Daly. I live on 5575 Tudor Way. So I'm an officer for the Environmental Club, just like most of the people who have been speaking previously. Now, I've been active in this club for a year now, and I've helped with several initiatives throughout the club and just for Del Oro in general. So about a year ago, with the help of Kevin and Jack, who just spoke, I helped start a compost program where we take perishable foods from the cafeteria at our school at Del Oro that would otherwise have gone to waste, and we compost them for the FFA farm, and we give the produce to them then. So the compost is used by the agriculture department. So essentially, we've created a reusable cycle in our school. Today, I manage this small yet robust composting program at Del Oro, saving nearly 20 pounds of food per week. We do coordinate with the staff there, and we pick up this compost material every week. So the benefits of composting include general reduction of food waste, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, enriching the soil for future planting, and creating a habitat for important bacteria for breaking down organic waste. Although my program is a bit smaller than that would be, it is still definitely important for the school to be saving this waste. Now, with this food scraps program that K.Von has proposed, the town of Loomis and Recology can partner to make our community we share much more environmentally friendly. This will help reduce the amount of organic material in the landfills, something we have to start getting on, especially considering the new SB 1383 requirements. Under SB 1383, 75% of all organic matter will have to be out of the landfills by 2025, and 50% will have to be out by 2020 next year. All the regulations do not take effect until 2022. We need to start acting now so we are prepared for the near future. Recology is aware of this, and they know they will have to abide by the rules in this bill as well. The food scraps program we are proposing in front of you today, council members, could act as a pilot program to help prepare Recology and the town of Loomis for the regulations to come. Also, by 2022, trash services will also have to provide organic collection service to all residents. So this will create a great opportunity to find a strategy that Recology can use in the future. We urge you to take action now and do the right thing for Loomis and the environment. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jake McCullough, 1195 Humbug Way. So to back up what Jack was saying, the bottom line is that we feel that the city and Recology in particular are not doing enough to encourage residents to subscribe to the super recycler rate.
Like he said, we feel the lack of community involvement with this program can easily be turned around by more general support from the town and Recology. By advertising the rate, the town can boost recycling, thereby reducing landfill waste. As for the food scraps program, programs like this one will have to be required anyway in the near future, referencing the SB 1383 bill. Programs similar to this have been implemented in dozens of cities around the state. The Bay Area alone has seen cities such as Mountain View, Palo Alto, Cupertino, Los Altos, Napa, and others reduce their overall waste by nearly a third, according to the Mountain View official city website. By simply providing the containers and the biodegradable liners for residents who sign up, Recology can help Loomis make the 2025 landfill deadline. In short, by promoting the super recycling rate and implementing the food scraps program in Loomis, Recology and Council can help the community for the better. The deadline for change is quickly approaching, but programs presented today serve as a glaringly obvious way to provide the change needed and required to help save the environment.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ashley Lehman, 2121 Switzer Road. I have been involved in the environmental club at Del Oro for a year now, and I just want to say that everything that Kevin, Jack, Sean, and Jake have been saying is true. Like they're dedicated to making this town a better place, and we as a group are always looking for ways to make our town more progressive, and I think that these proposals that they have said here today will make Loomis more environmentally friendly and help us prepare for the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Pam Blake. I live on Angelo Drive. One of my questions was answered with when was the last increase? That was 3 years ago. So my question is, what was the percentage of the last increase? And another thing I want to ask of Recology is if they looked into the cost between the blue bags and actually sorting through the dirty trash. I've seen it on the news with people on a conveyor belt and, pulling that up. I would think it would be much cleaner if the blue bags were supplied and if they checked into a cost of that. It was mentioned that our contract goes through to 2024. I don't want to do a back and forth like earlier, but I would like this question answered now. When did we get this contract? What year was the contract that's going to be expiring in 2024?
2001.
Okay, so this contract's been 2001, it expires in 2024. The other thing, thank you very much, Sean. The other thing is, let's see, South Placer Mud this year had an increase. There's a lot of people that are on a fixed income, which includes me. I know Bill's not here tonight, but he brought up last month's council meeting about fixed incomes too. I don't know much about like the contract and whatever, but I'm assuming there's been other increases since 2001. I'm paying more attention to the money coming in and the bills going out, and it seems to be increasing. I live in a single family home, and I went from the small 33-gallon can, which I lug out to the curb, to the 90-gallon toter. Now, I look at the 90-gallon toter as a saver for Recology for the guy not getting out of the truck. So if you're considering raising rates again, I don't have a lot of trash, so I'll be going back to returning the toter and taking the can to the curb and having the guy get out of the truck and empty it himself. So if you can address that one question, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with regards to the price increase, as she stated, the last increase was 2016. 2017, which did not take place, would have been a 2.49%. 2018 would have been a 3.39, and then this year is a 3.49. That gives you an average combination of about 6.1 when you spread it out throughout the different rates.
It comes out to about $1.50 on average as an increase. And with regards to the blue bag statistics, I would love to get your information. I can probably look into that and get you some more insight to what that looks like. And then, did that answer your question, or did you have a last one?
What was the increase for 2016?
2016 was the last increase. The 3 that we didn't have was 2017.
I just wanted the percentage for 2016.
2016 was, yeah, before. I have 2017, 2018, and then this year, the last 3 years that we're talking about. 2016 I don't have.
So that was the last rate increase?
Correct.
Did you want to comment on any of the points made by the kids from Del Oro?
Yes, great, honestly, great presentations, you guys, and absolutely want to help you with getting to those. I know each of you kind of had a different project that you're working on. I think it's also important to note that we just recently hired a recycling outreach coordinator. We call them zero waste outreach coordinators, and I would love the opportunity to set up a meeting with the environmental team and sit down with you guys to see what we can do to help and work with you this school year. I know that the students always transition. Every year we get a new group of environmentalists, so it'd be nice to just work with you guys on an annual basis, quite frankly, to keep that momentum going. And now that we have a new zero waste representative in place, we'll bring her along. Maybe in the next week or two we can sit down and go over some of those things you mentioned.
Thank you. So just to point out, this item is a rate increase, proposed rate increase. I do appreciate.
Tim, one of the questions that Pam asked was about the difference in the cost from the 90-gallon toter and the 33-gallon one. Is that about?
It's about, I believe, $9. Oh, there she was. Yeah, no, but I think it's about $9. I have my book in the back, so we can touch.
I think it takes it from $27.43 to $35.62 from a single toter residential to the unlimited. Yeah.
And you have to buy that smaller toter? You have to purchase that? Or do you just exchange with the 90-gallon toter?
We have 35-gallon toters, yes.
So that's no extra cost just to make the exchange then?
The size difference would, I think the 35 is a cheaper rate.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so you would be.
Single toter,
yeah.
2019, which would be the 35.
Correct.
Would be $27.43.
Right. Yeah. So to her point, she could use the 35. And that's the super recycle saver. Yeah.
And are those able to be picked up by the truck like they haven't in the past?
Yeah.
In the past, the guy had to get out.
Correct.
I think that's what she was under, that assumption. So
Yeah,
now you have a toter that's
Correct.
smaller that the truck can pick up instead of the man getting out of the truck.
Correct. Yep.
So they might not want to just call in and get that information
Yeah.
from your office?
I'll get her contact information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say the kids from Del Oro did a fantastic job on their presentation, and I think you have a lot of really, really great ideas, and I would be really interested in seeing some of your ideas become viable choices with Recology. So I know you talked about keeping in touch with them, but I think for me, perhaps if you would let us know how many of some of those ideas can be incorporated into our citizens. I think they're really great ideas.
Yep.
So how will we get a follow-up on that?
Any way you wish. I could meet with Brett and come back to give you maybe a presentation or a follow-up presentation after we kind of get things rolling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to point out, and we're not going to close public comment yet, so you can have a chance. So this item is a proposed rate increase, and I think a lot of what's being discussed tonight is policy, and policy is somewhat of a separate conversation. We want to keep those conversations somewhat separate. So it sounds like there's a lot of follow-up to do on the policy side. So I just want to make that clear. We're voting on, we're asked to vote on a rate increase tonight. Okay, so let's keep public comment open. Give us just a second, right?
Oh,
sorry. Just real quick, because Councilmember Duncan had suggested tours of the plants. Are those available? I don't know if you addressed it and I missed it, or...
Sure. No, I don't actually work at the physical facility, but I will work with them to get something set up.
And would that be available to the public or just to the council, or?
I don't know yet, but I'll get your number as well. And we
So
can,
if the town could let the public know
Do you want
about
to go
it.
to the Murph?
What's that? I want to
gotta
go.
go there this weekend if you want to come.
The tour is very,
It is.
the tour is very good, but don't go in July.
Save that for the
But
fall.
from experience, yeah. July is a bad month at the Murph.
Jean Wilson, 4301 Barton Road, and it sounded at first about the blue bags that it wasn't, but then we still haven't, we did it in the past, are we still getting blue bags?
you still have them available.
Okay, and I work really hard to separate things carefully and make it very recyclable. If I were just to put everything in the trash, I would say an awful lot of it is not going to be very usable. Okay, so that's just a comment. Your chart in the staff report gives the toter and the super unlimited. It did not list rate increases in what they are currently and what they would be for the, I guess it's called super toter, the small can, or the senior rates. Do you know, are those going up the same percentage? Okay. And related to that, what was I going to ask? Oh, well, typically with that one, when we did it, we were told we had to buy our own can. Is there now one that Recology prefers us and would like to give us so that it can be hoisted instead of?
Right, we offer 35-gallon toters that look very similar to the 96, they're just smaller. Our truck can handle those better, they can grip them. So when you use your individual one, it's, for points, you have to get out and we dump them.
Right, so in that case, and that doesn't, you don't charge us for that, but if we still get that Super Saver rate for that or not?
That's the Super Saver rate.
Okay, so to get that, we would call and ask for it.
I'll get your numbers.
And this is just a comment, since we have you here, and it's not related to the rate, but we have you here. It would be very nice when we have our annual or semi-annual Loomis cleanup days, if Recology could also let us bring small household items that can't go in the regular trash, such as light bulbs, batteries, used aerosol cans, that kind of thing. I know we can make the trip out to the dump, but it would be really nice if we could just dump it off here when we're taking stuff. And I understand you can call somebody if you live in the center part of town, but for those of us that are out in the rural part, I understand that they're not really inclined to come out and pick it up there. So to have a central place would, at least the twice a year, would be very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Miller, 4395 Gold Trail Way. I have a couple of comments. I appreciate what Tim said about policy versus rate increase, and what's on the agenda tonight is a rate increase. But before we grant a rate increase across the board without question, I would love to see some commitment to respond to the ideas that have come up tonight from the Ecology Club. They're asking the town to implement some experimental or at least pilot programs with the cooperation of Recology, and I think this is the time before the rate increase is granted to get that commitment. The other thing is, I hope I can shed a little clarity on the issue of the super recycler rate. By my own experience. We've had it at our house since it was implemented. We provided our own 30-gallon can, we used our blue bags, we put it out at the curb, it got picked up, we got the lowest rate possible, it was great. One day, I noticed that my 30-gallon can was gone and replaced by a wheeled container of approximately the same size. So I called Recology, and I was told that I told them I didn't want the toter because we had provided our own can to get the super recycler rate. And I was told that they were providing the small toter at no extra charge and the same service, and they were doing that, super recycler rate, so that the driver could have that automated collection. So, yeah, you can get a small toter, and it doesn't cost any more.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, Joshua Gutierrez, the Loomis News. I have 3 questions. One is, what is, if it's available, the average cost to customers monthly or whatever figure you use? What would be the dollar figure that these this increase would allow? And if this isn't passed, I was wondering if any services would be disrupted on Recology's end. Thank you.
I have the rate, so I can give those to you. So, and if this wasn't passed, would anything be interrupted? No.
Okay, any other public comment? Seeing and hearing none, we'll bring it back to council. Any other discussion? Okay.
Well, on Pat's question about working with the high school group, I think I would be more comfortable if we waited until they had a meeting with the Recology representative, the zero waste representative, and then bring us back a proposal that works for both the town and the students and Recology, because they have to work together to make it work for us. So I would like to see something happen with that as a group, and then come back to us what we can do as a community. I think it would be a more feasible way to work that.
I think that's a really good point. I think there's some clarity that we need to go through, identify exactly what the issues are, what mechanisms are already in place that
or what is coming. It sounded like she had things coming.
Or what we can do to make things a little better. It sounds like we can offer some of the blue bags. We can definitely have those at town hall. Maybe we can start implementing some of these programs right away. Some of them are going to take a little bit of time, but we as the town are committed to meeting the requirements that the state's putting out, and the young people have some great ideas, and I think we'd really like to implement them. But some of them are going to take some processing to get implemented.
And maybe if the town had somebody that wanted to sit in on those meetings, that would be good too. It's not me, but maybe somebody else that has an interest in that.
I would actually really enjoy doing that. When I was in Colma, we went through the process of redoing the franchise agreement that we had with our waste hauler. And we thought it would be like a 6-month process. It ended up taking 2 years. It's super, super complicated. And at the end result of all that, we had to hire a consultant running the process, the RFP process. We had to hire another consultant to vet the proposals because it's not as easy as was, what it was probably like in 2001. It's very complicated. And it's really like a kind of a niche market. At the end of all that process, though, we ended up with the food scrap program, and with those almost same exact things that all the residents in the town got. Colma was obviously much smaller, and it was easier to handle all that stuff. But the issue I think that we have right now is, like you were saying, the difference between policy and rates. We also have an existing franchise agreement that's a contract that runs through 2024, and so we can't just arbitrarily change the terms of the contract without Recology agreeing to do that. And so I think it's really important for us to sit down with Recology, with the Del Oro students. I'm more than willing to sit in on that conversation because I just went through all this stuff when I was in Colma and figure out what we can do and how we can implement something. But it's not like, let's just do this tomorrow. It's a really difficult thing to get started.
I will add that there's a lot of state laws that we have to abide by also. So I'm in agreement there. I think it's a great opportunity for the Del Oro students to kind of follow how policy is created. There's a lot of preparation before these meetings, and when we create a policy as a town, there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes and before we meet tonight. It'd be great if you guys are part of that and see how that all works out. And I'd encourage Sean and maybe another council member to be part of that process and work with Delaware students and ecology to work on some of those ideas that were presented tonight. So thank you, folks, for coming forward, and I can see you guys put a lot of thought into it as well. So thank you. I think the future is in good hands with all of you. So having said that, do you want to entertain a motion on the item?
Before you can entertain a motion, you need to officially close the public hearing, and because this is a Prop 218 hearing, right?
This is not, because your contract allows for a rate escalation, it's a different sort of process. I think but you do need to close the public hearing before you take an action.
Okay, so we're going to close public comment unless there's, actually, is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we're going to close public comment. Any other discussion with council? Okay. Have we followed the protocol? Okay. So item 10, do we want to entertain a motion?
Yes, I will for the increase.
Okay, motion from Rhonda. We have a second. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, item passes. Thanks again, guys.
Hang on one second. Sean, I'm out of the loop a little bit. There was a notice that does identify...
Can you speak in the microphone, Jeffrey?
I'm sorry. The notice that went out does identify a protest process. I would not have said that applies to this kind of a project, but since it's been noticed that way, do we have any protests that have been received? So I think we would enter into the record that no protests have been received, no protests forthcoming tonight unless there is something that comes in from a member of the public. So I would add to your motion that there were no protests received.
Would that be done through written protests or?
Yeah, the notice that went out apparently did identify written protests being sent to the town. We would typically also accept protests at a hearing. So, but if there are no protests that have come in, and you need a 50% plus one, right, protest. So, you'd have to have 50% of the properties within town.
So each property has a right to protest.
Property and customer.
So
right.
49% of...
But you would have had to have received those by now.
Okay. Got it.
You haven't received any yet.
So seeing that we have not
received any protests.
Any protests.
Rhonda needs to add that to her motion.
Yeah, I'll add whatever wording needs to be added to that.
All right, so we'll pull the item back, the item that was voted on.
I'll ask that we do the raise,
And
seeing that we've had no protest at this time, that we move forward with the raise.
Okay. There's a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. We good now? Okay. Item passes. Okay, we're going to move on to item 12. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. We're going to move to item 12, Sierra Montserrat, Rutherford Canyon Road. Presentation on traffic calming project on Rutherford Canyon Road. Who's doing that? Is that you, Brett?
Yeah, it's me again.
Okay.
So what we have what I'm bringing before you tonight is
let's give it just a second for everybody to clear out. If you guys would kindly take your discussions out to the lobby, I would really appreciate it. we still have a couple other items to take up. Okay, Brett, it's all yours.
So tonight I'm bringing to you a potential project that I've been working with the president of the Homeowners Association for Sierra de Montserrat. They're getting a lot of pass-through traffic on Rutherford Canyon. So one of the ideas that I was discussing with him was doing kind of a traffic calming measure, which is some striping, where we would restripe the road, put in a fog line at the edge, make it about 10-foot wide lanes. What that does is has a kind of a traffic calming effect, because a lot of the pass-through traffic on Rutherford Canyon is coming between Barton and Laird. So they've got a lot of evidence that shows that a lot of traffic is just passed through. It's not the residents that are doing it. And the people that are passing through are going pretty quick. They're actually, the recorded speed between the two limits of it is over 25 miles an hour. And that's pretty quick when you're moving through those, moving through the traffic circles. Anyway, I had the discussion with Hans, and because that's being used by the public a lot, I was proposing a bit of a cost-sharing measure on that. Part of the cost of restriping the road we were going to take from the Sierra Montserrat Maintenance District, because it does pay for striping and for the bike trail and the some other maintenance issues. So I'd like to propose that we proceed with the project on there, and the town contribute about 50% of the cost of restriping that road. I'm looking at about $10,000 to $15,000 to do centerline striping and 2 fog line stripes on each side. So
10 or 15,000 for the entire project, and then
yeah.
you're proposing splitting that 50-50 with the maintenance district?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And if you have any questions, I think there's some people from Sierra de Montserrat, and Hans is certainly here if you want to ask him any questions.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the council?
Well, I can say personally that I've seen that pass through traffic a lot. I work out on that road and live nearby, and am grateful for the ability to have a place to work out that's safe, but it is not safe when all these people are going by very, very fast. So I can see why it needs to be done. And just want to confirm there's plenty of money in each pot for the project?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. There's.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Have we done any traffic studies in that area recently?
I haven't done any traffic counts going through there lately.
Well, I'm just thinking you got to think of it in a kind of a regional, right? Like, what do we got going on Barton Road? What's going on in Laird? And, we can kind of aggregate what's going through there.
So nothing formal, but the residents in the Homeowners Association bought some traffic cameras and have been doing their own bit of a study. It turns out that their trail system through the development is being used by a lot of our residents, and a lot of our residents are also passing through. I think as high as 50% of the traffic running down Rutherford Canyon is just pass-through traffic. They can also see the speeds of those cars and the time that they come and go through the neighborhood.
Okay, perfect. The reason that I asked that wasn't to discredit what they have going on, but more to if there are additional measures that need to be put into place. If we had some kind of accurate counts on more effective ways to slow them down or to deter them from cutting through there. So I was just thinking about the process in a little bit bigger.
Right. The other measures for traffic calming, this is the most appropriate for that. Yeah, we're not going to put speed bumps through there or a toll bridge or anything like that.
Toll bridges are awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we were doing the appropriate things that way we can help the homeowners and also kind of deter people from going through there, so.
Right, and then I was also kind of looking at creating a project. I've got as soon as some people that live off of Wells and in that neighborhood saw this item on the agenda, they were asking if we could do essentially the same thing on Wells. There's a lot of bike traffic on our local roads now. I would love to start doing some stuff to make that a little more safe for them, and trying to figure out how to slow people down a little bit as they're traveling through Loomis, because it's the people traveling through Loomis that are ones that are speeding, not the ones that live here. So
yeah.
So I'll combine this with Wells and then bring it back to council with appropriate portions of the funding coming from those different sources.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's open up for public comment. Get one up. Name and address, please.
Good evening. As Britt says, I'm Hans Geyer. I live on 5511 Sable Ridge, and I'm the president of the Homeowners Association of Sierra de Montserrat. Took that job over 5 years ago. At that point in time, there were less than 10 houses occupied. Now we are about 50 out of 62 lots. And what we're now seeing is the problems change completely. You as a mayor know that how problems change over time. It was about approving and building houses. Now it's getting into more maintenance and repair and sustenance mode. As Britt said, one of our problems is traffic. The other problem is a lot of repair is now setting in. Not anything has been done over the least of the last 5 years when I was there. And there are two very specific things. One is the speeding. The other one is some of you may know, this 8-foot wide equestrian trail, which was probably never for horses, equestrians. It was always for walkers and joggers. That equestrian trail is completely unusable by now and dangerous. And those two things now play together. You can separate them, but if you're smart and combine them, we can come up with a better solution. As Britt says, we have installed security cameras at both ends of Rutherford Canyon Road, coming in from Barton, coming in from Laird Road. It's exactly 1.15 miles between those cameras. And we get exact timestamps and license plates. And through some computer programming, we now know exactly how many cars come into the community, how many cars drive through from one end to the other end. We know at what the average speed per car is that goes end to end. And the slowest ones are average speed, 25.7 miles per hour. The average of all cars that go through are typically around 32, 33. The daily record holders are typically in the range of 45 miles per hour. And the absolute winner so far is 50.6 miles per hour. Considering that you have lots of curves and hills and two roundabouts, that means somebody with a 45 miles per hour average speed must go up to 60 to 65 to achieve that average of 45. That's why slowing down the traffic is absolutely critical. And that's why this is also critical. That's where the second topic, the equestrian trail and repairing that one, comes in. Because the walkers, and more than 50% of all the walkers and joggers in the community are from outside the community, either close neighbors, or there are quite some people daily that come in with their car, park at one end, and then walk in the community. But they can't walk on this equestrian trail anymore, because in quite some sections we have ridges and fissures that are more than a foot deep. Everybody is walking on the asphalt now. If we don't fix the equestrian trail, we will absolutely get serious accidents. And even with marked bike lanes, we'll then get the bikers run into the walkers and joggers. So what Britt and I have been discussing, by smartly trying to plan both projects together, slowing down the traffic with bike lanes that narrow the car traffic lanes, and fixing the equestrian trail in a smart way, maybe taking some benefit out of the bike lanes. We should be able to combine the total combined cost of both fixing the equestrian trail and the bicycle lane. But clearly at the end, I want to play it very open, considering that not just the vehicle traffic, but also the pedestrian traffic is more than 50% from outside of the HOA. We will ask the town of Loomis to contribute to the repair of the equestrian trails. We are not there yet with the exact financing and the exact cost, because maybe if we are smart between the bicycle solution and slowing down on the asphalt side, we may come up with more creative solutions also for the equestrian trail. But for the HOA, those are the two hot buttons, and it is absolutely important that both of them get addressed. Otherwise, we will see accidents happening in there. And some of the council members know that area pretty well, and I'm sure you can support that. And with respect to your traffic study, I can give you the license plates of every car that goes through the community, how many cars, at what time of the day or night they go through, and at what average speed those cars that go through, or which residents when they come in and come out. Perfect traffic study by day, by hour, by week.
Yeah, and that's what kind of that data that I wanted to know.
Yeah.
That way we can kind of...
That data is all here.
Perfect.
Thank you, Hans. If you would please, moving forward, work with Brett and staff.
We will.
On a long-term resolution there.
And maybe one last comment, not related to that at all. For 5 years, I've been working together with the town people in your office. I can only say I'm very, very happy. It's a great group of people, very, very cooperative and supportive. So thanks a lot to all of you.
Thank you.
My kids go to the charter school, and I can assure you that my wife or I do not exceed 25 miles an hour going through your neighborhood. In fact, we don't use Rutherford Canyon out of respect for you and your neighbors. So,
but the school moms have a reputation.
They're very busy, and they've got a lot going on. So you won't see any of our license plates in your camera footage. Okay. Any other public comment?
Jean Wilson, 4301 Barton Road, and my husband and I do walk down there from time to time, so I understand the conditions. And just for a little bit of history, yes, that was intended as equestrian trail, obviously for the community, not just the residents, because except for about a half a dozen lots that are on Barton Road, the rest of Montserrat does not allow horses anyway. So that was a point of contention, but that was a settlement that ended up happening there. So obviously it was intended that people from outside the subdivision would be using it. And I can't say that I've seen as many horses in the last few years as there were. There were people that did use it. It's a DG path, so as you know, that erodes eventually with the winter rains, and if you've got DG, it needs a periodic upkeep. And another point of historical background, at one point, the county had intended for Rockland Road to be extended eastward toward the lake, and that would have been going through this subdivision.
Yeah, that would have been Rutherford Road.
That would have been Rutherford Road. Rockland Road was to be extended, but the geology of the area, the geography of the area, was such that that was totally impractical because it would have to go through major wetlands as well as over a significant hill in that area. And so what would have been traffic that would go through on Rockland Road got shifted up to Rutherford. And obviously there it was known ahead of time that that was going to be community traffic, not just the subdivision. And probably if it was just the subdivision, they wouldn't need the width and everything that, and the kind of road that they put in. Nevertheless, I think they are correct that there is a significant problem, And I think this restriping is a good way to start on fixing it, and it should be a help. And I will remind my husband when we're down there, make sure that you don't go more than 25 miles an hour.
Okay, any other public comment?
Sorry, I am going to do one. I would love to look at the data and kind of figure out when you're having the high traffic flow, because I'm wondering if it has anything to do with the two schools on the other side. And then if you're going to be working with Wells, then also maybe try to consider safe routes to school, because, I mean, you know that I've talked to you about trying to figure a way that we can get more kids walking to school, since, you know, it's just right over that hill. Thanks.
Okay, any other public comment? Seeing and hearing none, we'll bring it back to council. We will close public comment and bring it back to council. Any questions, comments, council?
I do have a comment. Because of the great data that Hans has, if this gets approved, I'd like to get that data after the project's completed so that we can see what sort of improvements that have been made, because I think that might help Britt on future projects around our city, our town. And again, I am one of the people that traverses that and actually did trip going up one of the hills because the material that keeps the DG together is coming up and I didn't see it. So, you know, I do think that there's an issue there for sure.
Do you have that on camera?
Is it on camera? We might need that.
Watch it out there. It's a very dangerous neighborhood. Okay, any other comment from council?
I do have a question. When this was originally put in, the equestrian trail, was that to be funded through their HOA, or how was that? What was the funding mechanism on that, or was that just a neighborhood feature?
There was a line item in the maintenance district for the equestrian trail, for the maintenance of it, but
Okay.
it was extremely low. It was way, way too low to do the kind of replacement that needs to happen out there. Some of the problem with it is that it was designed poorly in that it doesn't allow any way for the water to cross except for going over the surface, and that just cuts the rills in it.
Yeah.
What needed to happen were some drainage pipes being placed under it. That'll help it from wearing away. Also, it was just an equestrian trail with decomposed granite, which is not going to last, more than 4 or 5 years, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
Britt, about how much do they have in their maintenance district fund?
They've got quite a bit in the maintenance district fund because they've been collecting since they opened and they haven't had any maintenance issues. So I don't know the exact amount, but they have a lot of money in the maintenance fund. The portion of it for the bike, for the path is, that's only a certain percentage of that maintenance fund. And it's, like I said, it's a lot less than what needs to occur out there.
400,000, I'm being told by Councilwoman Clark Kretz. Okay, any other questions, comments? You good? Okay, item 12.
It's just a direction of staff. I would say come back to us with exactly what needs to be done in dollar amounts and. All right.
I concur. Everybody okay? Okay, let's do that.
See what
So
we can do to get it.
when can we expect it back?
I'll try to hit October with it.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks all. Okay, moving on, let's do council committee reports. Let's start down at Mr. Duncan's seat. Anything?
No, nothing.
Okay. Jan, anything?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. As I had mentioned, Youth Leadership Academy at SACOG, applications end on the 30th of September. Also, I want to invite all council members and executive staff to the Regional Futures Forum being hosted by SACOG and several other regional stakeholders on October 30th from 9 to 3. This is a regional discussion on the future of the greater Sacramento area. And if you have any interest, please contact staff. Those tickets can be purchased through Town Hall. I also want to thank everyone on the council for their work on our committees. For anyone in the public who may or may not know, all of us sit on committees, regional committees outside of our council work, and that requires a lot of preparation and understanding, and it's a lot of work, and I appreciate all of your work that you guys are doing. We may not agree on everything that happens on those boards, but I think that I have a ton of respect for what you guys are doing, and that's not always people don't always thank us for all of that, but I'm thanking you guys tonight. All right, and keep up the good work, and the region is paying attention to Loomis by virtue of the work that we're doing on those regional boards. So, thank you. Okay, Brian, anything?
No, most of what any major discussion that's happened at PCTPA has been covered tonight with some of those funding strategies. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Ron?
And the flood board keeps canceling the meetings because we don't have anything to talk about.
No flood. Okay. Well, that finishes our agenda. Let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thanks for all for coming.